everyone, welcome to Pairings. I am Chantal.
I'm Susan Scott Shelley.
And we are so excited because we have the lovely Maren Montalbano. Did I pronounce that correctly?
That was pretty close. Maren Montalbano. It just, think about like just saying it as if you were, in Italy and just like Montalbano,
So we are so excited to have you with us today. And Maren is like, you have so many things going on and so many things that you're doing. So maybe you can share a little bit about what you do, because it's so fascinating.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and thanks for inviting me. And so I am, for those of you who don't know me, which is probably everybody, I'm an opera singer. I'm also a business coach for musicians, and I'm a writer, and I'm a podcaster. So I have like many different hats. I host a podcast called The Bodice Ripper Project, which is how I ended up kind of getting introduced to Susan and then through you. And I feel like there's so much about romance that is just underappreciated. And so when I was backstage in the opera, like many, many years ago, I started writing these little romance novel snippets, just sort of based on whatever opera I was in. You get like Guard Number 3 and like Noble Number 2 getting together, and I would like, imagine that and then read the story aloud to my fellow castmates, and they just loved it. So it turned into a tradition, and now it's a podcast. And I also turned it into a one-woman show, and we can talk about that a little bit later too.
Oh, wait, I didn't know about the one-woman show. Oh, yay.
Should I just go into it? Should I just talk about that now?
Sure. Go right ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So, last year, well, actually, I got the idea in 2019. I was already thinking about like, should I do some sort of performance project? I don't know. I just felt like I needed to. And somebody suggested, why don't you take those romance novel snippets and like turn it into a show? And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of fun. And I started going down this rabbit hole of like, how do you write a one-woman show? Like, what is this going to be? Is it going to be a cabaret? Am I going to be singing opera? Like, how is that going to happen? And it turned into sort of a cabaret with music that I commissioned a local composer in Philadelphia named Melissa Dunphy. I commissioned her to write the songs. So every time I would read a story, and in the story, like the sex scene starts up, that's when I would start singing. So it was originally conceived as a live performance, and then of course everything got shut down. And so I didn't want to let go of it entirely. I had already signed up to be a part of the Fringe Festival. So when they said, we're going to go all digital, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to go digital. And I turned this thing into a show that I performed on Twitch. So it was like interactive. There were, when people chat, I would respond to those chats. And we had, part of it was really fun. Like, it's a deep piece, right? So some of it is really super light, where, I would do a like Mad Libs sex scene, and ask for suggestions from the audience. And then, I would start talking about my own relationship to romance novels, why I got into it. And that's a little bit more of a vulnerable story. So when I was 12 years old, I was sexually abused by my mother's boyfriend. And after that happened, that's when I really started devouring these novels. And I realized, as I was reading it, that these were stories of like women who were strong and capable and totally comfortable with their sexuality, and something to look forward to, something that I wasn't experiencing in real life. Mm-hmm. And it made me look forward to falling in love. I really think that romance novels, healed me in a way. And then creating this thing and putting it on and going through that in front of an audience, also is another layer of healing. So I think, you know, I'm very much in the art heals, you know, camp. And yeah, so the podcast is sort of a spin-off from that, where I tell those stories that I told backstage.
Yeah, and your podcast is, and one of the things I loved about your podcast is the music that you pair with because Marin reads a few chapters like of a story over several podcasts, and so I love the music that's paired with it, and it's like
it's an entire experience, because you've got the music, you've got the words, you can picture. It helps you easily set the scene in your mind. And it's so good. You're so descriptive with your writing. It's just like, you really feel like you're there, and you're just kind of, I really love it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's so funny, because I kind of agonize over when I'm doing the editing. So I do all of the editing for my podcast. But I'm really, really, really particular about the music. And I try to use the music in the opera that I wrote it in, because, you know, it's actually funny. Like, as I was writing it, I was hearing the music from the opera coming in through the, you know, piped it through the speakers. So I'm sure some of it informed some of the things that I was writing. So it was fun. It was really, really fun to go through, you know, each piece and like remember, okay, oh, I know the best like little snippet here. I'm going to add that in. And then it feels like a puzzle. Sometimes I can't get a public domain version of whatever it is that I want. So I have to come up with an alternate, but that's kind of a fun puzzle too. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's a really fun, enjoyable experience listening to your podcast.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to Marin's podcast, you need to go.
We will put the link below in the notes.
We will put the link below. Yes. So we actually read 2 of your short stories.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to call them, like novellas, or maybe they're very short.
So the Pandemic Passion is, and that one is on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's KDP, right?
That's right.
Kindle
Unlimited.
I don't know what
Unlimited.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's something.
Yes.
And that Unlimited. Right there is pandemic brain, right there.
Yeah, I wrote, so one of my friends from the opera chorus texted me about, oh gosh, I guess it was somewhere in the middle of April. So, you know, we were about a month into pandemic and really starting to realize, okay, like this is probably going to last a little longer than we thought. And, you know, little did we know. And, you know, also for the singing community, this has been really, really, really difficult. So obviously live performances have closed, but singers in particular are known as super spreaders because we eject air from our lungs at such high rates, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's a really dangerous activity to sing. And it, you know, sort of brings out like a whole lot of like, you know, who am I if I'm not a singer kind of thoughts, you know? And so I know a lot of the people in the singing community have been going through this whole time, including me. And so, you know, we lean on each other and we, you know, text each other and make sure that we're okay and everything. So one of them texted me and said, will you please write a pandemic romance? So it's like, for you, Julie, I will. Yes. So that's how that ended up. And it was, you know, I'm like, it's got to be short and silly, just like all the rest of the stuff that I've written. And so that's kind of how that came about.
Well, it was a fun, it was, because I'm going to tell you, like, when I was like, I don't know if I want to read a pandemic romance. Like, you know, it was kind of like that. I'm sick of the pandemic. But you want to go out and read this because it's so fun. It's such a fun
You've got 80s references with Jenny 5867530 with her handle, and I loved that, first of all, and then that it was just so real because, you know, especially at the beginning, you know, that I could not find toilet paper for 4 weeks.
Right.
So when they're sharing that, I loved how you did that, because that's just like literally I was searching and searching and searching. So like that was my so relatable with.
Thank you. Yeah. So that was my like original, like, okay, if I am going to write a pandemic novel, what does that look like? Right. And I'm like, okay, let's start with a meet cute. How are they going to meet cute in a pandemic? At the supermarket, there's only one thing of toilet paper left. And who's going to have it, you know?
and I loved all the music references and, you know, just throughout the story. It was like, oh yeah, like, oh.
I can't get away from music, I guess. That's really,
you know, it's so funny because that's, as I was reading it, I was like, oh yeah, she's such a singer, like, because it's like all music, you know, like all this music. I'm like, oh yeah, you can tell this woman is all music, you know.
Right.
But it was so, and that's what made it, like, that's one of the things that made it so fun was, you know, like, just you know, these references, and it's like, oh yeah, because you kind of hear it in your head, you know. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that song.
It was such a creative way, because you have to have, you know, they're, you know, obviously quarantining, and the way, I don't want to give too much away for people who are going to read it, right. But just the ways you have them interacting. And I don't want to give too much away, but I really want to talk about, like,
I know, I do too.
Well, okay. So here's, I'll help, because I got some of my ideas from the news. Okay. And at the time that I was writing it, there was a couple in New York that,
remember, I thought of that when I was reading it.
Yeah. So and in that news article, like they started like, one person saw the other on a rooftop, and then they kind of connected, you know, and like waved at each other, and they even like started actually going on socially distanced dates or something like that, where like they would like set up a little you know, dinner on one roof and like a dinner on the other roof. So I was like, okay, maybe I can make that happen, something like that happen. So there was some inspiration there. Yeah.
It's a very it was just an enjoyable read. Like you could just, you know, it was like a comfort thing, because it's, you know, it's light and fun, and you still get like all the romance, like story, like beats for, you know, writerly, because I'm not speaking well here with this, but it's a great, you know, if you're having a bad day, just, you know, go grab that book and just, you know, like, it's nice.
It was, and it kind, I felt like too, it's a reminder of, you know, even though during this time, this has been such a difficult time for so many of us, you know, and there have been times when it just feels so like, oh my God, this again, you know, dreary, we're in this, you know, Groundhog Day
totally
thing again. But your story, for me, it reminded me that, you know what, there are these great little things that happen in life, and this, you know, and the unexpected, and there is good that happens out there, and so it was such a lovely reminder of that even in, you know, not there's so great hope. Times, there's hope. There is hope. And toilet paper. There's hope and toilet paper. I mean,
exactly. Yeah. Well, that's really what, you know, I'm so glad you said that, because that's how I feel, you know, like it's not like, look, none of us are immune to, you know, pandemic brain and, you know, sort of this like feeling of Groundhog Day, like you say, where we don't know where, you know, how long we're going to be doing this. And, you know, for me, it's like, when will live performances start up again? A lot of people, have lost their jobs. You can get sort of sucked down this
Yes.
really sort of depressing, circle. And I read an article yesterday by one of my peers in the opera world who, basically was like, well, we're not okay. And everybody seems to have forgotten about us. And, it was a lot of the same thing we were talking about. And while I do understand the need to express that, I think it's important that we acknowledge, that things are not like hunky dory. I also think it's important to celebrate the little like silliness. Life still goes on, right? I mean, babies are still being born, and and like the spring is coming, and it's okay to laugh and giggle and be delighted in small things. Like, you don't have to be sad all the time.
Right.
So, I was thinking about that when early on, somebody screenshotted, or not screenshotted, they took a picture of a woman in line at the grocery store and were trying to shame her for buying flowers in like early April and I was like, I started buying flowers during the pandemic because I wanted something bright and cheerful to make me happy. Like, don't shame people for these little moments. Just like, if it makes you happy, and I don't know, just
exactly.
Find these little things that are going to help you get through the day. So
one of the things that I've been a little frustrated with, it's a weird thing. Okay, so some of the things that I do besides singing is I'm a business coach for musicians. So I help musicians work on, like, if they want to make an album or something like that, I will help them through and, like, give them goals and, do sort of strategy sessions and stuff like that. And when, obviously that's one of the things that I've had to turn to a little bit, or lean more into, since I can't perform. So I've been frustrated because there are people who are like, I don't have anything to work towards. And so I don't really want to practice, and I don't really want to, get creative. And it's a funny thing, because once you do make a decision to, like, okay, so I don't have any gigs. Well, can I make something myself? Can I do it myself? Then you actually have motivation, and you can like, do something. And not only that, you're pouring your own energy into things. It's not like you're working for somebody else, you're working for yourself, but it's hard for people to like make that leap, because they're still in this like, but I don't have anything.
Right. It's a total change of mindset. You have to change. You have to change that mindset. You have to reframe things, and that can be really challenging. Yeah. Now, we also read Desire's Peak, which now, is that coming out? That's not out yet.
It's not out yet, but I will be reading it on my podcast. So so it will, I'll probably read it, I want to say in about a month or so.
Okay.
But we can talk about it for sure.
Yes. Well, yeah.
So the opening, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chantal.
No, you go, Susan, go.
So the opening right away just sucks you in. You have Stetson, and he's just like waking up, and I love how he doesn't have the memory, and his wallet is missing, and he knows he talked to some women, and it's, so you have, well, we know we're going to get a romance because it's a romance, but then we also have a mystery element, which I loved. And I don't know, just the name alone, Stetson, I just picture cowboys and horses.
Yes. So I wrote this in Montana.
Okay.
And I was sort of at a summer festival with a choir that I sing with, and they requested this. This is all like, all of these stories come from requests now.
I love that.
So they requested it, and they're like, and because we weren't doing an opera at the time, but we were in Montana, I was like, well, I guess I'll just make it Montana-esque, and so I picked a real good cowboy name. We had just like, it was the day after I had gone to see a rodeo, so I was just like, all right, this guy's gonna be a cowboy, like, for sure.
And I mean, quite frankly, who doesn't love a cowboy? I mean,
right.
No,
you know, I mean, in romance.
Yeah, so my
Who
favorite
doesn't love a cowboy?
romances, exactly, like I'm a big like historical romance fan. Like that's my jam. Like when Bridgerton came out, it's funny because I read Bridgerton when it came out, the books. And then I started watching the Netflix series, but it had been so long. The books came out in the early 2000s, I think, or something like that.
I think so.
So it had been so long. I was like, maybe I remember this. And as it like kept going forward, I'm like, oh no, I've read this entire series. I know exactly what happens to every single one of these people. But yeah, I love historical romance, and a lot of the stuff that I read when I was in high school was like Wild West, like Victorian cowboys, and like definitely I grew up in San Francisco, so there was a lot of like gold rush stuff as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it and again, this is another story of just like I just feel like
it's a nice escape from
it is. And there's like this I like the indulgence of it. Like, I don't know, I felt like there was this.
So, yeah. I mean, it's funny. Thank you.
I know, again, I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny because I personally, right now, I feel the need to apologize because it doesn't go very deep. It's so short. And I create these stories to basically tell in one evening, just read aloud in one evening. And, then there you go. So I have to keep everything short, and I can't really go into too much, but like, there's so much about this. When I was writing it, I was like, oh, I could draw this mystery out like so much, like let me, so you don't have to do any spoilers. I'll point to a couple of different bits. So, he wakes up at the beginning, he wakes up in the bar. He doesn't remember, his wallet is gone. He has to figure out like what happened. He remembers these two women, but like, that's about it. And then he and his friend go on basically a little road trip to try to find them. And there was, I had in my brain, this all sorts of different scenes. Okay, so like maybe they could find a clue here, and then it would lead them to this, and they would meet these people, and blah blah blah. But like I couldn't, because I had to keep it really, really, really short. I also knew that my audience really, really wanted to hear about the sex. Like, they were really interested in the sex. So I had to please them. I didn't have to, but like, I like writing about it too. So, there were I kind of skipped to the good parts, and again, it's like some of the plot points are a little bit like, wait, how did that happen? Okay, but that's sort of part of the joy of reading this kind of, or writing it, it's just sort of like, who cares how it happened?
But you know what? This is a story though, like, like you said, and it's something that if if down the road you're like, hey, I'm going to expand that, because like, that's something that,
right.
That, we do all the time, is like, oh, like, here's a story. And then it ends up becoming, more. But it's great the way it is. It's a great indulgence, I think. But you can totally expand it too, if you ever want to at any point.
I've actually I've mentioned this to Susan, and she's been really, really encouraging. I do feel like there's so much stuff where I do have this like extra story, like a whole lot more that I want to go into, but I don't like feel like I have the time, where I don't feel like I'm part of this is imposter syndrome, coming up, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm not a real novelist, so like, I can't really, but that's not true.
That's right. I was going to say, that's not true. You are a writer. You are a novelist. You've written, you've done it. My stuff isn't, 100,000 words long. I'm still a writer. I like my shorter length stuff. I mean, I love reading long stuff too. It's fine, but you're still a writer and you can do it. And whether you have these short, indulgent snippets that, suck us in and let us just, have a wonderful ride, or whether you stretch it out and you make it longer, or you do a serial where you do these installments, you're still a writer. But we all suffer from the imposter syndrome.
Oh my God. Hello.
Yeah. Tell me about that. Like, when was the last time you sort of like looked at yourself in the mirror, or like, was like, I can't do that. That's not me.
Like yesterday? Like no. It happens a lot, especially. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think part of that for me comes from the vulnerability of putting out something you've created, and how does it measure up, and what are people going to like it? Because you're it's coming from you. But I come back to, does it make me happy? And if it makes you happy, you should do it, because you need to feed your soul.
No, I totally.
And you should totally do it.
Yeah. And like when my first book came out, like I just released my first book in the end of 2019. So I'm a newbie, and when it first came out, and I can I tell you, my children were in elementary school, and their principal bought the book and told me she bought the book, and then asked me to sign the book, and I was like, oh, and because it had a lot of F-bombs in it, and and there were sex scenes, and I'm like, oh my God, my children's 70-year-old principal is reading the book.
Can we talk about that for a second? Because I feel like there's like some, we still live in a little bit of a puritanical society, right? And like part of the appeal of romance novels are the sex scenes, and are that kind of like it's a little bit of a like it's an escape, and you can sort of feel these feelings like jump out at the page and everything like that. But then there's a huge amount of judgment. Like somebody that I work with very closely, who I look up to as a mentor, he knows that I do this, right? Like he was there in Montana. He very like obviously stayed away when I was telling these stories, but I know that it makes him uncomfortable. So I try not to, bring it up or anything like that. But it's hard, because I also, him being uncomfortable and then being vocally uncomfortable about it makes me feel like, am I being shamed?
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what the good thing, where the balance is, because obviously, some people, this isn't for everybody, right? And that's really okay. You don't have to like shove it in their faces or anything like that.
Right.
Well, you do you, Marin, because we have enjoyed escaping into your worlds that you create. And so should we do our pair? Should we? Oh,
we should do our food. Yes.
Yes, we brought food and drink. So do you want to go first, Susan?
Okay, sure. Okay. So I'm going to start with my beverage that I chose. So I went to Pandemic, and things that I have missed, being able to go out and just, so one of the things I loved is, so some of our Philly writers would get together at this coffee shop like once a month and, sit and chat and all that stuff. And I really missed going out and having a cappuccino and just sitting and chatting with everyone. So I made one. I don't have a cappuccino maker, but I have a blender. And so I sort of steamed and frothed my milk. And it is not bad. And then I thought, well, let's go with an indulgence, right? So I made, and it also ties in with my
Mm-hmm.
they are chocolate cappuccino crinkles.
Ooh.
So I used a very, very rich Italian cocoa powder. So these things are dark.
They look good.
And they have like a tablespoon of instant coffee in them, and I used a French roast. So these are so dark, you guys. Oh my goodness. But they're good. They're very they're very rich. It almost reminds me of a brownie on steroids.
Nice.
Ooh.
So it's like a quick hit of chocolate and caffeine.
Yes.
In a very small amount of
Yes.
of time, like of a bite,
Yes, exactly.
And so,
yes.
which is exactly what pandemic passion is like.
Yes. It ties in. It ties in with your stories, because it's just, so that is me.
So I also went with, like pandemic and indulgence. Like that's what was going. So I read Pandemic Passion first. So that was kind of what, that was where that was kind of the headspace I was in. And as I was reading it, I was thinking about like when we first went into the shutdown, I was buying things that I typically did not buy at the grocery store. We, like I don't typically buy potato chips or anything, like, maybe on a rare. Every single week we had sour cream and onion potato chips, family size bag in the house. And I was buying the party size bag of M&Ms, and that's every week we were going through it, and it was like, oh, so that's what I kept thinking of as I was reading. But we also made a lot of chocolate chip cookies. So I made.
Ooh, they look good.
Oh.
They look like
and they almost
perfect.
fell off.
Oh my God.
Chocolate chip cookies, which and I will say, Marin, my children are very thankful to you because I made chocolate chip cookies. So they're like, yay. Thank you, Miss Marin. And then I also, so wine was a big part of the pandemic and still is. So I have my mother sent me, so funny. She sent me this glass. I don't know if you can see, it says 2020 quarantine survival glass. So you can't.
Oh no, yeah, you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to put my hand. So I have my glass of Pinot to go with my chocolate chip cookies in my quarantine glass. So, and again, I thought I was the same with Susan. Like I was in that kind of, I read Pandemic Passion first. So I was in that mindset. But then when I was reading Desire's Peak, I was like, it's like, this is all indulgence, isn't it? Because we needed some indulgence when we were in that pandemic. And so I kind of felt like, well, this still works because it's all about just, grabbing on to the little bit of joy we can find during this time.
Exactly. For me, it's all about like making sure that I cook everything like before it goes bad. So I had some extra limes. And I made a raspberry lime bar. So I can't. There, I know it was, but this is total pandemic cooking. So I know. Yeah. So I haven't even like cut them into bars yet or anything like that. But last night I was like, I gotta get rid of these limes and I gotta do this, so it's exactly just like what you're talking about. It's like just finding out, doing whatever it is that you can do with what you have. And so to drink is my it doesn't pair very well with raspberry lime bars, but our drink of choice at home is beer. So I have like pretty much any craft beer.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
So
my husband he's a home brewer. So yeah, and it's funny, I don't like beer, but I always do the tasting. Like I give him notes, tasting notes. And so we have a lot of beer.
Yes, so do we. My husband is he belongs to the like beer of the month club or something like that.
Oh
so
yeah.
We just get these
fun.
boxes of beer.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Maren, for joining us. But thank you also for, all of the great art that you are putting out into the world. I mean, because that is, that's part of what I mean, and again, we've been talking about the pandemic. I mean, that's really what has gotten us through, hasn't it? It's been artists.
Yeah.
It's been, books and music and TV and movies. I mean, it's been all of this. And so, thank you so much for doing your part to make our pandemic a little better.
Well, I will continue to do it. So thank you. And thanks so much for your encouragement. And I really love being on this show. It's really great.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And
and you'll definitely have to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Once I write more like bigger novels. Yeah.
No,
sure.
You don't need bigger.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching. And we will have all of Maren's information in the notes. And next month, what are we doing next month, Susan?
Next month, we are revealing a secret.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. What are we doing? I knew we were doing. That's right. We have a secret.
A secret.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
So we will see you next month, and have a great one, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.